You're listening to the Self-Disruption Show on iHeartRadio with Audrey Lontis, hacking business, science, and psychology to smash your goals.
I get to bring to you some of the most exciting leaders, people that are thought-provoking and thought leaders that carve out a lane that help all of us find a lane for ourselves. And today is no different. I would love to welcome, and I want you to give a welcome to my guest, Toni Lontis. Toni, thank you for being here today.
I'm so delighted to speak to you again, Audrey. We've had such wonderful conversations. It's lovely to be joining you here from sunny Queensland in Australia, early in the morning in the middle of winter.
Well, she is a champ. She got up at the crack of dawn before the sun and the warmth from Australia to make an interview. I'll tell you, I'm a huge fan. I follow you on social media. I'm part of your group, gratefully, on LinkedIn. I see your shows. You have drilled into this really special space of encouraging leadership among women. And it is such an important space. What started, Toni, you on this path of empowering women, particularly women, not letting them give up on themselves at any stage in their life? Where did that energy and that passion come from in your own journey?
Well, great question. Thank you, Audrey. I guess that my life has not played out as smoothly as I would have thought, and there have been a lot of struggles along the way. So I was actually born with a preauricular sinus, which is a facial defect, which left me with a permanent stroke-like on my left side. And so that was the start of life. Dysfunctional family, then into my 20s, some pretty horrible stuff happened: domestic violence, sexual assault, divorce, bad choices, bad relationships. And in the background of that, I had undiagnosed depression and anxiety. So by the time I got to my 40s, I had a breakdown. And it was only then that I started my healing and self-discovery journey, which actually, for as difficult as all of those things were, it led me to where I am in my mid-50s, that I actually sat and wrote a memoir about that journey and the healing of that journey. And what writing the memoir did was totally reinvent my life in my mid-50s. And we're going to talk a little bit about ageism later, but to discover a passion you never knew you had in your 50s. I'm a nurse, you see. I'd had a nurse consulting company and I zapped across Australia prepping day surgeries and small hospitals to meet the national safety standards. And a traditional business, working with nurses and doctors and hospitals, and I was good at it. But then I sat down and wrote the book and started to write about the journey that I'd been on. And as I did that, more and more people encouraged me to keep talking about it because they felt it was helpful. And from my perspective, I wanted to show people that there was hope and help no matter what you'd been through, and that you could change your life and you could have different outcomes even into the middle of your life. The way that I ended up on this journey, the online broadcaster journey, was the production of the audiobook. I was going to get an actress to narrate my story, but the producer kept saying, no, you need to do it. You need to do it. Finally, I said, okay, but you'll have to help me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to speak. And so she gently coached me to do that, another beautiful woman. And it was very cathartic, very emotional, really tough. She sat me down at the end of that process and said, Toni, there's something about your voice and the energy and space you create when you speak. She said, have you thought about Audrey? Have you thought about radio or podcasting? And I said, no, not for me. But what happened was a wonderful media company out of Florida in the US approached me, and Radio Toni was born. And the rest has been that ongoing journey.
I am so touched by your story. And I see why so many people resonate with it, because it is a path that women have found. And when you're willing to lean into your fear, like you were about speaking, look, it opened up an entire vertical, because you do have a soothing voice that feels very welcoming and very sharing. And some of those natural tools that we dismiss in ourselves every single day can actually be the lane that carves out our own unique space. And we dismiss them.
Yeah, we do. I the first 6 months of my show, and it was only audio streaming, so there was no video, it was just audio. I was sick before I stepped in front of the microphone, but I felt that I'd committed to the show, and I felt that I had to follow through on that commitment and just keep doing it. And as I did that, I then started interviewing people, and that's when I discovered this. Like, I've always loved people, but I seemed to discover a knack for uncovering things that they hadn't talked about before, or that they hadn't shared about before, and that I was able to create that safe, intuitive space for them to talk. Both men and women, both men and women have said that to me, but it took 12 months of people saying, I really love the way that you interview. I really love the way that you talk to me. I really love the space and energy that you created. I've never told that to anyone before. I've never spoken live before. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm okay at this. And maybe this love of talking to people and this passion for finding their uniqueness can be something in my midlife, you know?
I do. I see that you broke down your own fears and tackled them. And through that, you were able to help people tackle their own experiences and share it with the world. I understand the power of a microphone and the responsibility. And I follow your work, and I'm such a huge fan. So the fact that you are using it for the right purpose. So often people sit in front of the microphone and may not have, in the world of massive amounts of podcasts, and may not have their purpose aligned with what they're meant to be doing. Not that they haven't nailed it, but sometimes. But I just feel when I listen to your shows that you are drilled into the purpose and spreading that purpose of helping other people through your story. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Do you know, I think that was one of the things that I did early in the piece was, what is your vision? What is your mission? What do you value? Fundamental business components, but I wanted to do them my way. And my vision and mission sits on the whiteboard beside me, and I glance at it, I don't know how many times a day, and it just reminds me, this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm doing. It's not about me. It's about the numbers of people that you can engage with, because my fundamental belief is that everyone has an underlying mission, and everyone has a message or a story or a way to help someone else across the planet. And I feel like it's my job to connect those two groups of people together. So the better my online broadcaster business goes, the more people I can reach, and the more people are connected to the people that I interview and work with. And that's helping humanity. And I want a better place for your kids, Audrey. I want a better place and a better world for my grandson. I don't want them to grow up with some of the issues that we have now. I want a different world. I want to leave it a better place.
Where can our listeners find out? What a tease. If I haven't ever served up the best tease to my audience, where can we learn more about you? If people are running out now, or they don't have a chance to hear this whole show, we're going to run it again and again. But where can people, Toni, just quick check, find more you, because you're addicting. Like, where can we get more?
Oh, gee, that's so lovely. It's really easy. Radiotoni.com. RADIO, Toni.com, or ToniLontis.com, 2 websites. If you Google either of those words, I know that the shows and the work that we do will pop up. But Radio Tony is the platform where I have all my co-hosts and my guests and all their information as well. And there's some fantastic guests with fantastic offers as well for both business and personal. And so, yeah, just radiotony.com. If you want to email me, I love getting emails. It's just info@radiotony.com. info@radiotony.com. I get lots of people connecting and asking questions, and they vary from I need help with this now. Where do I go to? How did you get into the whole plethora? And I like answering people's questions. I'm very open, and you will see my book is warts and all, and there's some pretty tough stuff in there. So I'm an open book, essentially.
I love it. And she is not kidding. She is the hardest working lady I know, because when I'm slacking it and she's on Australian time, I see what's going on her campaigns. She's everywhere. The LinkedIn is blowing up. The Instagram is always happening. You're running shows constantly. You're putting the rest of us to shame. You're showing off too much there, Toni. No, I'm kidding. But you work so hard. My goodness. You're a good example to what I probably should be doing more of. But you work so hard. You procure great content. You make a difference.
Audrey, you have babies. You have babies.
That's true.
Yeah.
But even in that, like, I her graciousness in that.
Women.
You make a difference. How can we start making a difference in our own lives through with what you've learned, or start sharing the information and really putting it to work? So often I feel that we are bombarded with information and we have it, but we miss that opportunity to connect the dots. What do you say, Toni, to those of us who are bogged down with details, but not finding the starting door?
I actually think that one of the key components for me, so I'll do this in two parts. So back when life was really tough, I had to simplify things. So that actually meant that some days I just focused on breath work, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. So that was the initial part of the trauma phase. And then as you go along and start to heal and things start to get better, you need to protect that healing. So that means saying no, having boundaries around your time and your space, and self-care practices like meditation, journaling, those sorts of things. And then when it comes to business, I actually believe that non-traditional media has such a capacity to connect with people. So when I say traditional media, I'm meaning, CBS, NBC. But there's a whole world of non-traditional stuff out there, i.e. radio, podcast, live streaming TVs. You can stream your work onto all your social media simultaneously while streaming across the world. The technology for getting you and your information out is amazing now. And for me, I wanted to make that available to everyone so that they understood the technology and they understood the capacity to reach and connect with your audience. Because you don't know who's going to be listening, who might, from a business perspective, need a social media marketing manager that does an amazing job and has a wonderful offer. You might want to talk about the business course that you've created that is unique and different. So there's so many amazing ideas that are there to help the rest of humanity. So my idea is about connecting people to the source of the help, be that personal, professional, or business.
She's the conduit. She is the go-to. I call that the Oracle. I love that. That's going to be my new nickname for you. You know what, when we look at what leadership is and what the mentor process is and what personal development is, it drills into this space that we're going to align ourselves with people who have been down that path, who have seen what the journey looks like, where we can ascertain information from them to skip the
Yeah,
line in our own journey for the purpose of accelerating our own success and our own goals. And it looks like what you've built, Toni, is the platform to help people accelerate their own individuality on the path to their dreams.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it. Well, that's why
I
you're here
guess
today.
so. I know. I like life was tough. I've had some really hard lessons, and if I can help ease the path of someone else, then that makes me really happy. If I can make life a little bit easier, if I can help connect you to the people that you need to speak to, then I will do that, because I'm fundamentally a helper at heart.
Sweet. That's lovely. You know what? What a beautiful gift you have. And it's lovely that you know how to use it. I liked what we had talked about when we were putting together last month,
Yes,
and we talked about shaping this show. And a conversation came
yes.
up between us. And so often with my guests, one of my favorite things to do is to just go off script. And for those of you who listen, it's no surprise. Audrey uses no script. There are no pre-qualified questions. When we do our show, we just
Yes.
talk about what's on our heart, what
It's
comes up, and we connect the dots on how we can apply it in our own life. And you and I got on a great topic
yeah.
about what women do in their careers today. And we exampled me and my growing career and my
Yes.
young family to what it is to look at women
Yes.
fast forward 10 years and 15 years, and how we can look in that mentor place to see
Mm,
where our path is going to take us. And you had mentioned that
mm,
women felt invisible. That was the word you had said. And
yes.
my heart got heavy.
Absolutely.
And then I started researching it.
Mm,
And my gosh, you don't have to look very far to find an article about women feeling
uh-huh.
invisible once they enter into a
Yes.
stage in their life where their children are out of the house. And I thought, well, gosh, is that my fate? I have a
Absolutely.
baby. Like, is this? So I look to my mentors who light the path, people like yourself, who can help me
Mm,
make better decisions in my life today so that I don't wind up on a path where I feel that I have built myself to be invisible. And I have some interesting research for you,
yeah.
because we talk about this invisible generation. It turns out that women become more powerful in our life, that our ambition
Mm-hmm.
drives statistically between the ages of 50 and 65. We drive personal
Yep.
ambition, but yet in the workplace, we are considered diminished if our beauty starts diminishing, that there's a connection to that. And it blew me away that we lose validity based on wrinkles appearing. That just made no sense to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I read about and heard about the invisibility of women in their middle age and thought, oh, that's not going to happen, but it does. From the people walking past you and as if you're not there, people walking into you, people dismissing you because you're a woman of a certain age. I don't want that for you, Audrey. I don't want that for your daughter. That's not okay. I actually believe that I have more knowledge, more wisdom, more understanding, more empathy than I've ever had in my life. And that's because I've reached the stage where my children have grown and gone and left, and I've got grandbabies, and you have a different stage of life. I absolutely believe that we need to protect our young mums and their ability to mother. And I think that we as a society do not do that well, because you guys are raising the next generation. And I believe that's important. But then conversely, when we get to that middle age and in our 50s and 60s, there's a wisdom that we have to share with the world. And it's a wisdom learnt of life and experience. And we're happy to share it and we're happy to help, but we don't often get asked. And I know for myself, starting to interview and be present in the world in my mid-50s, I've found it really challenging at times, because people tend to go to the men before they go to the women, and women have such wisdom, Audrey. They have such wisdom that will help not only women, but that it helps men as well. And it allows men to start to talk about some of their struggles and their issues as well.
So conversely, after doing some light research, that the slope for women goes down and that feeling of invisibility and that cloak comes around them because of some of these factors.
Mm-hmm.
It is inversed with men, and men become more validated. We see that in back to back, the two American presidents are older than we've ever had. And men at the sea level
absolutely
are the highest age group that we have ever seen statistically in American corporate levels. So it's just shocking disparateness when we talk about what is fair and we talk about movements that level things. This is a call to action that needs to be addressed. How do we open up this conversation? Because there is some really strong data that dispels the idea that women, of course, we both know that that makes no sense, that women would devalue their contribution because they're accelerating their age. But a new study just came out from MIT this year that said that entrepreneurs hit their best opportunity of success after age 45, that people who try younger than that don't have the same arc of success, that success isn't for a 20-something-year-old startup, that we need to pay attention to the fact of the data and start changing our cultural beliefs on how we value women. I don't want to be devalued. I don't want my daughter to be devalued. I wouldn't devalue my mother. Why would I allow that to happen in a culture? Sorry, I'm on my soapbox for a minute.
Absolutely. I so agree with you, Audrey. From my perspective as a woman, it's a beautiful stage of life, because for the first time in your life, you actually start to believe and know within your soul the wisdom you hold. It's an unexpected gift to get to this point in my life and go, actually, no, I do know about that. And yes, I do know. And I have lived that. And this is what I found. And this is what can help. And I think that I feel the most self-assured that I've ever felt in my life, the older I get. And so for me, that's a blessing.
Yes.
That's a real blessing.
But we're fighting against two negative factors, ageism and sexism. Is the double-edged fight. And then I think that the data shows there's this self-inflicted ageism where women are casting themselves out of the game. The world has dismissed them, so they're dismissing themselves. And I want to talk about the tools that can put us back into our game. And before we kick off the tools that can put us into our game, I want to remind the listeners of a couple really cool super achievers. We all know the great Julia Childs. How old do you think Julia Childs was when she started her first show? She was not 22 years old when the French Chef started its test pilot show. She was 52 years old. Her first show. She went on to do hundreds and hundreds of shows.
Yeah. That 50s is a really amazing. Look, there's ages that I remember turning. So 30 was really quite traumatic. 40s was when I started to. See, women and 30s, and I remember my daughter's recently in the last few years turned 30, and she said, "What is it, Mum? I'm 30. I haven't done this." I'm like, "Darling, it's just the age. It'll pass. You're doing fine. It's okay. It's a 30 girls thing. I don't know what it is, but that's, these different ages have different effects and impacts on women. But the 50 mark and into your 60s, it feels different. It feels better. It's freeing. It's liberating. Part of that journey is that you're able to throw off some of the shackles that held you back. So you no longer got kids at home. You have a bit more time freedom. And for me, it was about saying yes to things that I was petrified of doing and doing it consistently, so that you don't feel the fear anymore. So that's what I did.
Got it. But I think it's great to lift up other women's experiences, to show as examples. I talk about Julia Childs, or we know Martha Stewart. Again,
Yeah.
she didn't start till she was 50.
Yeah.
Or Ariana Huffington. We all love a good Ariana article. And she was 55 years old when she started her wildly popular articles. So we have to raise
Oh.
these women up as identifiers that it is indeed not over just because you don't want to wear a two-piece bikini anymore. Like, there are other benchmarks of what success is. Changing that social connection about what we're doing and where we're going in our path, versus just building this singular identity of what it is to be a woman. It has to be a roving opportunity for success.
Yeah, there's such great examples, Audrey, to share with the audience that, don't think that life is over when you get to your 50s, because if we look at society, it's conceivable that at 50, there's a good chance you've got another 50 years. So why not reinvent yourself? Why not give something you never thought that you'd do a go? It'll change your life. And I want to be able to look at you, Audrey, and know that you've got longevity for a long time, that you'll be able to keep doing this forever until you don't want to do it anymore.
How do we build longevity, Toni, into our life? How do we say that I'm going to be agile enough to move with the times, and I'm not going to have a fixed mindset? I'm going to be open to opportunity. How do we find that willingness in our heart to move with life?
I think that mindset is such a powerful component of that conversation. I think that you have to really challenge the thoughts. I forget how many thoughts pass through your mind during a day, but it's like a lot, like 100,000 or something. And it's about grabbing hold of some of those thoughts, those limiting beliefs, and those things that would keep us small, or those fears, and challenging them and going, because if you look at fear in itself, it's just a thought. It's not anything else. It's just a thought. So if you take that thought and go, okay, thank you, brain. Thank you for reminding me that I'm human. But here's what I know. I know that I can do this. I know that I can say that. And I know that I've got a plan for such and such. And you start to knock the fear on its head. And that's how you keep going and have a long and illustrious career, is that you have to tackle that mindset almost daily. Well, I have to tackle it daily. I'm sure lots of other people have to tackle it daily, but it's about constantly weeding out the negative and replacing it with a positivity that keeps you going. And then, of course, it's about doing the things that keep you going as well. So as a mum, Audrey, you must know that self-care becomes harder and harder when you're raising a baby. And it's important. You have to carve out some time to look after yourself, because at the end of the day, no one else is responsible for you except you. So you need to look after yourself. You need to look after your mind, body, and spirit. And those things will give you longevity.
I love it. I heard cultivating a growth mindset, challenging those fixed thinkings that holds us back, letting go of some of the negative thoughts, and sort of making that a daily practice, and owning what it is to take care of yourself, that you're going to be in charge of designing your own happiness, your own well-being, your own cultivation of self-care, and to put it into practice. Not just, it's fun to talk about self-care, and I even post things sometimes, and then I look at it going, I'm such a hypocrite. I only did one of the things I'm telling people to do. I totally dropped the ball on this. Like, it's easy to say, and it's so hard when you're like, oh, laundry and babies and bottle washing, and suddenly you're like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm out.
Yeah. And sometimes, Audrey, sometimes the self-care is that I'm just going to sit in this chair for half an hour and not do anything.
Were you in
And
my
it's
house
about
last night?
telling yourself it's going to be okay. I was going to say, if that baby's asleep and you've had a really busy day and you want to sit in that chair and just stare at the ceiling for half an hour and go, phew, got through another day, then you need to do that.
Thank you.
Because
You heard it
raising a
here.
human
Toni said
being
it.
is
And
hard.
you've been such a mentor to me, Toni, and I'm so grateful for it. But sometimes you just need to find someone who aligns with your thinking and that can help guide you. Where can our listeners find all of the bits of Toni? I know we talked about it before, but I need to make sure before we sign off that all of our listeners can find Toni, because I'm addicted to your stuff. And I know that people are going to have an enriched life if they could just hear your voice, hear you focus a thought for the day, a piece of information that can spur on the next action and chart the course. Where can we learn about more of you, Toni?
Well, for a lot of my mindset, my books, my ebooks, I've got gratitude courses. I've got a little hope therapy course. That's all on tonilontis.com. So all that kind of helpful stuff is on tonilontis.com. For those people, businesses and anyone listening who wants to work with me in the broadcasting film way, that's all on radiotoni.com. YouTube, there's YouTube, there's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, BBS Radio TV out of Texas, Binge. Binge networks across the US and Hero Go streaming TV across the US. And syndicated across the world as well. You'll find if you just type in Radio Toni, the information will pop up, or info at radiotoni.com. There's also the Toni TV channel app on all Roku, Samsung, and LG smart TVs across the planet. So if you look, you'll be able to find the little bit that might be helpful. And again, I love talking to people, Audrey. I get emails and little messages all the time, and I try and answer them as quickly as I possibly can. But mainly, I just like to help or give hope to people. And then from a business perspective, I want to connect you with the world, because again, what you do in business is unique to you. The way that you do business is unique to you, and there'll be someone that needs you and your business listening or watching somewhere in the world.
Wow. I mean, gosh, you're so busy and so productive. But before you go, I'm dying to know about your new venture with CEOs and creating these segments for women. I'm intrigued by it. It's getting this tremendous groundswell. Instagram or LinkedIn rather is blowing up over it. It's a big queue to be part of this. Tell me what's going on.
So I realized partway on my journey that there were a lot of people out there at CEO and small to medium business size that wanted to be more present in the world. They wanted to connect with different marketplaces, and they didn't know what to do, how to do it. The technology scared them. So at 2:00 one morning, I'm thinking, how can I do this? How can I help? And I created these packages, and they're called my online broadcaster packages, where I collaborate with the business owner, and we produce a series of co-hosted shows. And those shows are then distributed across all of my platforms. So it's actually about leveraging my network, their network, and the bigger networks that I work with. So for instance, Binge and BBS and all of those, and making sure that we get brand awareness for you and your company across the planet. So you might be thinking that, how can I reach the world? Well, this is one small way to help business, and in particular CEOs. There's some amazing CEOs out there. that have wonderful wisdom and knowledge to share with the world, but they don't know how to do it. They don't like social media and these packages are created for busy people. So they're done for you, done with you, and include lots of elements of social media, email broadcasting, layering of information and layering of where the shows are available. And then you get those files at the end of it all, and you can piece them together and repurpose them as social media for 12 months. So
Amazing.
Some of the companies I've worked with have created 6 shows that have then spurred a webinar series for their business. And it's specifically about their business. And you're not cut off at 5 minutes. You've got a whole show and a whole series of shows to fall back on. And that's me in a nutshell.
That is brilliant. You know what? Being on this side of the line, I can tell you that is so much work distilled down for somebody to be able to package these concepts. It is a tremendous gift. I mean, if you asked me to put a number on that, I don't think I'd be able to, because it takes years of knowledge to be able to put together in all of these verticals. So people are really lucky to align with you, Toni, just because you're super sweet and very deeply seated in your knowledge, but also passionate and compassionate to particularly women in business.
Yeah. I love, and that's not to discourage men. I do work with men as well, but I'm particularly passionate about female entrepreneurs because we don't get the same amount of media and coverage that the amazing men in our society do. So female entrepreneurs in particular have so much to share with the world.
Well, your soft spot resonates with me. I'm so grateful to have you on the show today. I'll make sure that our listeners have an opportunity to connect with as much content as possible. There's so much about you. Before we go, Toni, what is the one question that I forgot to ask or the parting thought you want to leave with our listeners? I always throw it to people because, I always forget this stuff. Again, no surprise. I'm not scripted. So I get to the end of it going, I don't remember. Did I forget to ask the most important thing of all? So I always just kick it back to my guest and leave it to you to give that parting gift that you have for the world.
Well, first and foremost, Audrey, thank you so much for letting me be on your show. We have the best conversations, and you yourself are a delight and a blessing to the world. And so I guess my one thing would be, what could you create if you let go of the fear of other people's expectations?
Wow. That's our soundbite, folks.
How's that?
That's amazing. Beautiful, Toni. That's amazing. I'm going to run with that. You can't do any better than that. So I'm going to thank our guest. I'm going to thank our listeners today. This is Audrey Lawrence, and you're listening to the Self-Disruption Show on iHeartRadio and WWPR in Tampa Bay, where we find science, psychology, and leadership to accelerate us to our goals. Have a great day and follow us on all your social media outlets.
Thank you for listening to the Self-Disruption Show with Audrey Lawrence. To learn more, go to audreylawrence.org and follow us on your favorite social media.